Hello and welcome to the Situation Report today. Very glad to have you joining me. This is the show where we do our best to give you the information and perspectives you need to navigate an ever-changing culture. My name is Jeremy Stolnicker, and here today with one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite people. In fact, if we weren't filming and recording, I still do everything I can to sit down and have a conversation with him whenever I can. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West is with us, and he's been on this show before. He is a friend, he is a mentor to me and to many here in our organization at the Mighty Oaks Foundation. And man, an incredible American, a man of God, someone that I could not speak more highly of, and very excited to share our interview with you. Today, we have the opportunity to talk about America, what it means to be really an American. We're at this 4th of July time. We are celebrating the independence of our country, and yet so many of us have forgotten what that means, where we came from, why it's important, and what we are actually celebrating. We talk about the future. What does the future of this country look like? Why should we be optimistic and hopeful, even though things can seem so dark and so difficult? We have the opportunity to talk about that. Talk a little bit about the Supreme Court, some decisions that were made, what they mean, and so many other things. Very grateful to have this conversation and to be able to share it with you. My guest is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Great to have on again today our friend Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, who, as I'm sure you know, former member of the United States Congress, political commentator, and not most importantly to everyone, but certainly to us, board of advisor member for the Mighty Oaks Foundation, a good friend, and someone that I consider a mentor. So great to have you on with us. Thank you for doing this again. I will use any excuse to talk to you. So I'm thankful we have this venue to do it. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Well, it's my pleasure, Jeremy, and I want to wish you and everyone watching a happy Independence Day.
Let's start with that, if you don't mind. I want to get to the Supreme Court, but what does Independence Day mean to you? You served for so many years. You've served those who have served. You've been in this fight for a long time. What does this weekend mean to you?
You know, it's a weekend where we remember that, back some 246 years ago, the greatest nation that the world has ever known was established. And the important thing about the United States of America is that it was established on the premise and the belief that the individual is sovereign and supreme over the institution of government, because the individual's rights come from a creator God that is sovereign also. And you served in the Marine Corps, and what a great honor that we could be part of that lineage that has stood there to protect this great nation. And what's so unique about the fact that, being Marines and also being a soldier is that our branches of service were started before there was a nation. Right. Before there was this Declaration of Independence. And that leads you to believe that what we have here is not a geographical location. It's an ideal. And it is the greatest experiment in self-governance and democratic principles that the world has ever known. And we got to continue to protect and preserve it.
We've had a rough year as Americans, and we've had rough years in the past, but this seems unusually difficult. And for many, it's been discouraging. Are you optimistic about the future as you consider, we come into this weekend, and for many of us, it's very nostalgic, not only for our own service, but just looking back historically. And are you optimistic about the future when you look at our country?
Yes, I am. And I will tell you, one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic is very personal, in that my son-in-law, my youngest daughter's husband, right now is at basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So he is committed to being a soldier, and he's going to come back and finish up his last couple of years of college and seek to become a commissioned officer. So that's why I'm encouraged, because what has continued throughout these 246 years, you've always had young men and young women who have stepped up to say that they will serve this great nation and protect those liberties, those rights, those freedoms that we have. And in the darkest hours, that's when you find the greatest amount of, recommitment to what this great nation is. And, one of my great military heroes was Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, and I'm sure you know who he is, the Battle of Little Round Top of Gettysburg. Not a professional soldier, professor of rhetoric, and he stood there and he did not surrender. He did not retreat. William Barrett Travis, 26 years of age, commanding the Alamo, did not surrender, did not retreat. So those stories are what make us who we are as American people, and that's why I have optimism. And first and foremost, we will restore our Judeo-Christian faith heritage and put our trust in God, not in man.
As you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Now Mike has done it again by introducing his My Slippers. For a limited time, you will save $90 on a pair of My Slippers. This blowout sale of the year won't last, so order now. Mike has taken 2 years to develop the My Slippers, and they are designed to wear both indoor and out all day long. Made with MyPillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue, they are also made with quality leather suede. Call 1-800-870-0283, use the promo code SITREP, or go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use promo code SITREP. This offer will not last long, so order now with promo code SITREP at mypillow.com. How do we get back to that place? And I think perhaps more now than ever, it's become very clear that we have strayed from that path. And I think we've long talked about our Christian nation and our Christian founding, and we've held on to what was. And somewhere along the way, I think we've lost our grip on that. How do we get back to that? How do we communicate that to others? And how do we kind of right this ship?
It starts in the home. You and I have talked about that so often.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about the Supreme Court, and this kind of leads into that a little bit, the decision that they made up in the state of Maine, where parents can make the decision to send their children to private schools, to religious institutions, because that is their money. It's not the government's money.
Right.
And so I think that that's what we have to get back to. It starts in the home with those principles and values. You see so many people now running for school boards and getting involved and getting engaged at that local level. So I think that we will see a return and resurgence of civics education, history education, not this revisionist stuff. And we're absolutely appalled by some of the things, the grooming of our children, the gender modification, and all of that.
Let's talk about the Supreme Court. I think perhaps the thing that has given me the most a hope in our future freedom right now has been some of these decisions. And if we had talked 2 months ago, I would express complete disappointment in the Supreme Court. I think a lot of people have felt so let down. We thought we had a conservative court, a court that understood the Constitution, that wanted to defend the Constitution. Some of the decisions just weren't there, but the last 2 weeks have been absolutely unbelievable. I'd like to talk about the Roe decision, but more broadly, before we get specifically to that, how do you view what's happened in the last couple of weeks?
What has happened in the last couple of weeks is that we have a constitutionally based Supreme Court that understands, according to Article 3 of our Constitution, they're supposed to interpret the law. They're not supposed to make law. They're not supposed to make up rights. They're not supposed to deal with the culture and the society and the whims thereof. They're not supposed to be judicial activists that are trying to implement an ideological agenda. And because we have had such a dearth of constitutional education and understanding civics, you see people out in the streets going apoplectic. But what they decided was absolutely correct. You know, the Constitution in Article 1, Section 8, there are 18 things. That's it. 18 things that's the duty, responsibility, jurisdiction, purview of the federal government. Anything else, all those powers not designated or reserved to the federal government, or go back to the states and to the people, not delegated to the federal government or reserved to the states and to the people. And that's what they decided. That's the 10th Amendment. That's the last amendment in our Bill of Rights. So that's where this should have been. And they corrected a bad Supreme Court decision, which is what Roe versus Wade was. And even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that Roe v. Wade was on some really shaky ground when you really use jurisprudence and constitutionally based analysis and assessment to look at it.
What made that a particularly bad decision? I've heard a lot of folks talk about that in the last couple of weeks. Taking away the fact that it endorsed the murder of innocent children. we can set that aside, but from a jurisprudence position, what made that a particularly bad decision?
The Supreme Court does not make law, first and foremost. And so when people are saying that Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, no, it's not. The only people that make law is the legislative branch. And the left had so many occasions that they could have codified Roe v. Wade into law. They didn't. And so now they're trying to come back and talk about ending the filibuster. They're the biggest proponents that are attacking
Right.
our democratic institutions. The other thing is that the Supreme Court can't make up rights. The Declaration of Independence said we have a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It didn't say anything about a right to privacy.
Right.
And so when you read the Constitution, there is no enumerated right to privacy. There is no enumerated right ability for someone to kill an unborn child. And so basically what we had with Roe v. Wade in 1973 was an ideologically based Supreme Court, not a constitutionally based Supreme Court. And the sad thing, Jeremy, is that over 60 million babies lost their lives by dismemberment because we didn't understand what the Constitution, said was a right.
It's always been crazy to me, and even now, I'm thankful for this decision, of course, but even now, it's always been crazy to me that this is a political conversation, that this is a political discussion, because it doesn't figure with me. It doesn't reconcile. The death of a child becomes a political conversation that we're fighting over. It's a left and right, and how we can't see it simply as a life issue is. It's just so puzzling to me. And even the decision from the Supreme Court, why they're not focused on the life of the child, again, is an amazing thing to me.
Well, the thing is, they have to be focused on interpreting the law.
Sure.
And that's it. They can't sit up there and try to adjudicate morality. And that's the key thing that I think that now it goes back down to the states.
Right.
And the people in the states can decide who they want to elect as their state legislatures. And you already have seen that South Dakota and Missouri, they had to trigger laws. And so abortion, the murder of unborn children, immediately became illegal in those states. Here in Texas, we got 30 days before that happens. So that's where this should be politically decided at that state level.
A lot of the conversation about this decision from those who are opposed to it highlights the impact this will have on underprivileged communities, poor communities, the normal group of folks that we're always told are going to be impacted. What do you say to that?
I say very simply, the greatest impact you have seen in the Black community since 1973 is over 20 million Black babies have been murdered in the womb. Planned Parenthood was founded. If you want to talk about racism, okay, Planned Parenthood was founded by white supremacists and racists who spoke at Klan rallies. You can go back and read, what Margaret Sanger wrote. You can listen to her videotapes, her speeches. She referred to Blacks as undesirables and human weeds that had to be plucked out. People with diseases, things of this nature that have to be eradicated. So this was really all about a genocide in the Black community. And, we have a community where Black women make up 38% of murdering of unborn babies in the United States of America, but yet Black women are only 7% of the population. So you want to talk about an adverse effect, there it is. And that was not part of the community that I grew up in the 60s and 70s in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia. So, this thing, the real racism, this is not going to affect, Black women in the way that the left wants to believe. This is going to, once again, restore that semblance of life, especially in a community like the Black and Hispanic community. They're very pro-life. They're very religious. And it says in Deuteronomy 30:19, God says, I set before you life and death. Choose life so that you and your descendants, your generation shall live.
As a Christian, watching people talk about this, there are Christians that are on one side that would, certainly celebrate this, that use terms like the murder of unborn children, like I would. And then there's others who say we need to be kind, we need to be compassionate, we need to be considerate, and there's probably a middle ground in there. How do you, as a Christian who have an opportunity to speak to others, to communicate this, how do you communicate that? What advice would you give to someone who believes, as I do, that life begins at conception, that's a gift from God, that's not something we at any point in the pregnancy should terminate, but understanding the cultural background that we're in, the cultural landscape that we have, how do we communicate that in a way that's effective and helpful?
Well, you communicate it with love, but you also have to communicate it through the Word of God.
Yeah.
Jeremiah 1:5 says, that I knew you before you were formed in the womb. I mean, that's David talks about how blessed is the man who has, children. It's like arrows in his quiver.
Yeah.
So the Word of God, if you're a Christian and you believe in the Word of God, I mean, it's right there. Now, what we have to do is we have to be kind and compassionate. We have to do this with love. And so we have to go out and reach out to these women. One of the Pastor Hagee down in San Antonio has created this place called Sanctuary of Hope, where women who have these unexpected pregnancies, what have you, they have a place where they can go to,
Right.
and they could have a little apartment. They're able to raise up their children. They're even able to get an education. Out there in Palm Springs, or Palm Desert, California, there's a place called Mama's House. Does the exact same thing. Bring these young ladies into this campus and this home. So that's how we can be kind and we can be compassionate, operating within the Word of God and what we're supposed to do. And we can start making sure that there are, services that are provided to them, in the case of rape, incest, what have you. But I believe that, everyone will agree when it's the case of a mother's life, that's an important decision that she has to make. And you see that consistent throughout. But without a doubt, we got to stand up for life.
Yeah.
That's your very first inalienable right in the Declaration of Independence.
Does this decision open the door? Clarence Thomas may have indicated that it would open the door to other decisions similar to this as it relates to things like gay marriage and other things. Do you think it does that, or was that Clarence Thomas saying, I hope that it will, or I wish that it would?
No, look, let's be very honest. The Obergefell versus Hodges case, that emanated out of California. And what happened in California was what happened in California back in 2008, Barack Obama's first election, you had a marriage amendment that was on the table there in California.
Yeah.
And that marriage amendment got voted down by the people of California.
Yes.
So what did the left do? They didn't listen to the people. They took it to the courts.
Yes.
And then it made its way up to the Supreme Court, and they ruled that the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. The court does not have any jurisdiction over who gets married or whatever.
Right.
That's states are the ones that grant that. And I've always been a proponent of civil unions. So what Clarence Thomas is once again saying is that you look at what a court is supposed to, have as its purview and review. This should have never gone up to the Supreme Court. It was something that was decided at the state level. The people in California said no, but then the left took it into the courts. And again, 9 individuals don't make law. 9 individuals don't grant a right. We don't have a right to housing. We don't have a right to free healthcare. We don't have a right to free education. We don't have a right to marriage. But these are the things, the ideological rights of the left, that they inculcate, and especially in the court systems, where if they can't legislatively get it done, then they run to the courts.
Yeah. Another very important decision that came out of this is the Second Amendment decision. And you've been a huge proponent of the Second Amendment, which I'm glad to see somebody who comes from an Army background even knowing how to operate a weapon. So I'm very happy to see that, and that's great. But you've been huge on this, of course. What do you make of the decision that Clarence Thomas gave the opinion on, and what impact will that have more broadly outside of the state of New York?
Well, it says that the Second Amendment, now that is an enumerated right, but yet the left, it doesn't agree with their ideology, and so therefore they want to undermine it and take it away, or as it says, shall not be infringed. They want to continue to infringe upon it. When you look at the language of the Second Amendment, Jeremy, it's so simple, it's so pure, it's so easy. A well-regulated militia, okay? Well-regulated, when you go and do the study, that means well-trained, okay? And the militia is us. The people, the citizens of the United States of America. And our founding fathers understood that an armed individual is a citizen. A disarmed individual is a subject.
That's good.
So a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, which means that we are responsible for the security of this state, this government, these United States of America. And therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's just simple. And so this whole thing where we had to have court decisions, Heller versus D.C., McDonald versus Chicago, to say that you could have a weapon in your home. Right. And now this thing where, you got to show some type of reason why you should be able to have a concealed carry license. You don't have to show a
Yeah,
reason.
right.
Your reason is the Constitution.
Right, right.
And so think about in the state of New York, what would have happened maybe in Buffalo if those individuals that were there, someone at that grocery store
Yeah,
had a concealed
sure,
carry permit.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it.
It changes everything, and that statement, an armed society is a polite society. It's crazy because you and I have both been in places where everyone there was armed, and it changes the tone, it changes everything, and it really would in our country as well.
Look at the crime and how it's rising and increasing, and it is always in these areas where the left is in control. And the shooting that happened in Uvalde, absolutely tragic. But the thing is this: what if those parents had shown up with their weapons and told the police, "We're going in there to get our children.
Yeah.
You can sit out here and you can deliberate, you can debate for 77 minutes. We're not going to allow it to happen." And if they were trained, if they had gone to an NRA firearms instructor training, think about Stephen Williford, the person that neutralized the shooter in Sutherland Springs. He had an AR-15. He neutralized that shooter. Why? He was an NRA trained firearms instructor. So when the people are armed, or Jack Wilson, who in the church, a white settlement right outside Fort Worth, in 3 seconds, he took down the shooter there in that church. That's what the Second Amendment is talking about.
So many things at work. What are you expecting to see, maybe not out of the Supreme Court, but in the next several months? We've got so much going on right now politically in our country. What are some things you're keeping your eyes on?
Well, I'm keeping my eyes on now how the left will try to pivot and look at how they can flip state legislatures. Because if you've got a constitutional-based Supreme Court that's saying we're not going to, step outside the box, we're going to get this federal government back into the Constitution box. These are things that the state should be deciding. Let's see how the left goes and try to flip some legislatures at the state level. And let's also see how the left is going to try to manipulate our institutions. They want to end the filibuster. They want to now put, abortion clinics on federal land, which is a violation of the Hyde Amendment, because that would be taxpayer money going to support, abortion. So we've got to always think where they're trying to go and get ahead of them.
I'm super excited about your podcast. This is something I think you're so good at it, and I'm glad that you finally did it. I think it's the right thing. You've got some incredible guests on. One of the things I've really appreciated about it is there's not a line in your conversation between faith and the Bible and what's happening in the world. You'll have the Bible open, you're reading from passages, you're interviewing incredible guests. Can you talk about that for a minute? People who are listening to this show need to go and follow you. So talk about what you're doing there and how you're doing it, maybe even why you're doing it.
Well, it's the Steadfast and Loyal podcast, and it comes out on Thursday evenings, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. The whole purpose is to better inform, educate, and activate people. And look, our Judeo-Christian faith heritage is the foundation to who we are in the United States of America. And there's so many parallels and similarities that, the children of Israel, after Joshua had passed away, they started to worship the Baals. One of the gods of the Baals was the god of child sacrifice, Moloch. And look at where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's important that we bring those things in. And not saying that I'm trying to create a theocracy in the United States of America, which is what the left will say, but we've got to understand those foundations. It's just like in any sport, you got to have some fundamentals, and the fundamentals to our constitutional republic is that Judeo-Christian faith heritage. No other nation was founded on the premise that your individual inalienable rights come from a creator God, the Judeo-Christian faith heritage God. So we try to look at all of these different issues, being at national sovereignty, being at the border, religious liberty and religious freedom. Look at the Coach Kennedy case that just came
Another great
out.
one.
Another great one. So we try to look at all of these things and make sure that people are better informed and educated.
That's awesome. Colonel West, thank you as always. I'm so grateful for you
pleasure.
and appreciate the conversation.
Always a pleasure, Jeremy. Happy to be with you anytime.
Yes, sir.
And I didn't use a lot of long words because you are, Maureen.
You know what's funny? I've been waiting for that the whole conversation, and it never came out. But no comments about crayons or anything. So yeah,
I'm strategic.
Thanks for keeping it simple. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
All right, yes, sir. Grateful for the insights of Colonel Allen West as always. He is fantastic, and I love listening to him, talking with him. In private conversation, sitting down and learning from him. So much wisdom, and grateful that we could have him on today. Please go and watch his show, watch his podcast. You'll find it on YouTube, and you can look it up there, and I know that you will, and you'll be happy that you did. If you're not yet subscribed to this podcast, please do that now. You're listening from somewhere. Make sure that you are subscribed. That would be fantastic. And then go over to YouTube. You can also find our channel there, The Situation Report. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, share that content out, and we would love to connect with you there, of course. Thank you for watching and or listening. We will talk to you next time. Many of you know that my day job is working for an organization called the Mighty Oaks Foundation. I've had the opportunity to work with the Mighty Oaks Foundation for a little over 10 years now, and very grateful for that opportunity. I served in the United States Marine Corps and left in 2003. When I came back from Iraq and got out of the Marine Corps, I transitioned and had some of the same struggles that many of our veterans today have. That transition time can be very, very difficult. I moved on with the help and support of my family and others in my close-knit community, and really in many ways tried to walk away from my service. It was too hard, too difficult for me to look back, to remember, to stay connected, and so I chose not to. About 10 years after I walked away, I was reconnected with many of the men that I had served with in Iraq and even before that Iraq deployment, and came to understand that so many of the men that I served with did not do well. I came home and I struggled, but I had a family around me and I had a community around me that helped me to get back on my feet and continue moving forward. So many of those that I had served with, however, did not have the same opportunity. They came home and didn't have that family around them, that community that could lift them up. And so they made some decisions that we talk about often in the veteran community. I was reminded about 10 years after my service that some of the men that I served with in Iraq came home and struggled and decided that it would be best for them to end their lives. Others who had not taken their lives, but who had struggled from one relationship to the next, from one job to another, and had never really gotten back on their feet. I learned after 10 years that walking away from my military service was not really an option. You see, we think we can hang our uniform in the closet for the last time and walk away, but our obligation to those that we served with remains. It was at that time that I had the opportunity to get connected to the Mighty Oaks Foundation. It was just getting started. I met our founder, Chad Robichaux, and together we began to work on what is today a national nonprofit serving veterans, active duty service members, and more, the first responders in our community. That's what we do. You see, Chad served in the Marine Corps as well, and both of us have an understanding, and so many of the folks, many folks that work with us now who served in the military and in the first responder community understand that we may get out, we may hang the uniform up, but we still have an obligation to care for those who have served or are serving. That's exactly what we do at the Mighty Oaks Foundation every single day. We run programs across the country for those who have served, veterans, or are serving, active duty service members, those who are serving in their community as first responders, police officers and firefighters, and others in that first responder community. We serve them by helping them to understand that there is life beyond their service, that their identity should be wrapped up in more than a uniform or a job that they've done or are doing, that there is a purpose, that there is a plan. In fact, that God, the Creator, has something He intends for them, and that if they'll simply align their lives to the life that He has for them, so much of the trauma, so much of the difficulties, so much of their past, so many of those things that have a hold on them, they may not go away, but they won't maintain the hold and the control. Here's the message we try to convey and communicate. There is hope, and there is a community of people found within the Mighty Oaks Foundation that understand where you've been because we've been there. We don't have it all figured out. We're certainly not perfect, but we've taken some steps to move forward, and we want to take you with us. That's what we do. How do we do that? Again, by communicating the fact that there is hope, by connecting with others who've been there and know how to move forward, and by getting around you and supporting you as you begin to take those very important steps yourself. The Mighty Oaks Foundation is blessed to have supporters across the country that make it possible for us to do the work that we do at no cost to the veteran, the active duty service member, or the first responder. For you to attend our program, you simply need to set aside 5 days and come to one of our locations, one of our facilities. We'll do the rest. There will be no cost to you for the program, no cost for the transportation to get you to the program. We do all of the planning and all of the logistics. You simply need to get there. We want to remove every obstacle for you to get the help, the encouragement, the strengthening, the hope, the renewal that you need. We're thankful for the opportunity to do that. Perhaps you are not a veteran or a service member. You're not in the first responder community, but you care about those who have served and are serving our communities. Well, you may fall into the other category then. Perhaps you're someone that can support what we do financially to make it possible for those folks to come along. Maybe your support is not financial support, but you know someone in your community, in your town, in your church, in a club, or something else that you're a part of that could use this kind of support and encouragement. Plug them in. Let us help them. Let us get them on the road. No cost to them. We want to do the work, but we need you to get them to us. That was a lot of words. If you listen to the show, you know I say a lot of words sometimes. So let me point you to the one place where you can get all your questions answered. MightyOaksPrograms.org is our website, MightyOaksPrograms.org. There you will find more information about what we do as an organization. There's an application for those who would like to apply. Fill that application out. Our team will get back to you, set everything else up. If you would like to support the work of the Mighty Oaks Foundation, you'll find a place to do that there as well. And there is also a section for resources. So many of you know people who need help but may not start by coming to a program, attending a program, but they would read a book, they would watch a video, they would listen to a testimony. We have those resources there for you as well. So please come and join us at the Mighty Oaks Foundation's website, MightyOaksPrograms.org. Our veterans, active duty members, and first responders need our support. Maybe you're in that category. You need our support, and that begins by going to the Mighty Oaks Programs website, MightyOaksPrograms.org.